Can reading in dim light really damage your eyesight? Do you need 8 glasses of water a day? Medical myths. I'm talking to Dr. Aaron Carroll from the Indiana University School of Medicine. He's written an interesting article in the British Medical Journal about medical myths. Welcome, Doctor.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Let's just run through these myths. These are things that a lot of doctors, when they're asked, would say are true, but they're all false. So let's talk about them.
Sure.
Should people drink at least 8 glasses of water a day?
People should drink the amount of water that they think they need. They should drink when they're thirsty. The number, to some extent, came out of a recommendation back in the 40s or 50s when an expert panel just to some extent decided how much liquid we needed a day. What was important to remember, though, was that they didn't say you needed that much water, pure water. You just needed to get that much hydration. And lots of foods we eat, fruits, vegetables, contain a lot of water, as do other beverages that we consume. So while we need to make sure we drink enough so that we're not thirsty and we're well hydrated, you really don't need to drink 8 glasses of water a day.
Got it. Now, there's a myth that's been going on for a long time that my mother told me. We only use 10% of our brains.
Yes, and that's one that's very popular, and I've heard that many times too. That one originated probably at the turn of the 20th century with some people who wanted to just basically sell a tonic, snake oil salesmen, if you will, to help people improve how well they use their brain. There's just no truth to it. Good science shows that we're using 100% of our brains, and certainly nobody would want to lose any part of their brain. We use well more than 10%. We use all of our brains.
Now, we know that because we've got some great imaging studies these days that can really look at that and tell us for sure we use it.
Exactly, and all those imaging studies show us that all parts of the brain are firing almost all of the time. Certainly different parts of the brain are used for different things, and we use some parts perhaps more than others, but the neurons are firing all the time, all of them, and we are using 100% of our brains. There's just no truth to that at all.
Now, a fairly morbid one. Do our hair and fingernails continue to grow after we die?
This one's real popular in the media. You see it a lot in books and in movies when they unearth a casket or when they talk about how long a body has been dead. And although it can appear that fingernails or hair are getting longer after death, growing fingernails or growing hair is a very complex hormonal process that requires a live body to take place. What you're actually seeing when it looks like hair or fingernails are growing after death is the skin actually becoming dry and desiccating and retracting, making it look as if fingernails or hair are getting longer.
Right. Now, what about this one? Shaving makes hair come back darker, coarser, and faster.
We're still getting a lot of feedback about this one because some people refuse to let this one go. There's a whole industry built up around the idea that women cannot shave their legs, or if women were to shave hair on their face, that it would grow back thicker or darker or coarser, and it's just not true. Nothing that you do to the hair above the skin has any effect on its future growth. If that were the case, then balding men could start shaving their heads and grow all their hair back darker, coarser, and faster. When hair starts to grow back after you've shaved it, it feels coarser because it hasn't been blunted yet. It looks a little darker because it hasn't been able to be bleached by the sun yet, but it's growing no faster, and given a little bit of time, it'll look just like your hair did before.
Now, what about this one? A lot of parents are going to be upset with you, but reading in dim light doesn't damage eyesight?
Lots of parents, probably my mother included. It just doesn't. It can cause some eye strain because it's a little more difficult for your eyes to focus when you're reading in the dark, but all of that strain goes away rapidly once you return to normal light. It really causes no permanent damage at all. No epidemiological studies or any other studies have ever been able to prove that reading in dim light affects your eyesight in the long term, and it makes sense if you think about it just from a common sense standpoint. We live probably in the best lit the world has ever been, and a lot of people think our eyesight is getting worse. 100 years ago, everybody was reading by candlelight, and they certainly all weren't going blind.
Good point. All right, the next one, turkey. I don't know about you, but on Thanksgiving I eat a lot of turkey, and I always feel drowsy afterwards. Are you telling me turkey does not make us feel more drowsy than other meats?
I'm willing to admit right up front, this is one I absolutely believed as well until we went into this. Luckily, Rachel did not. The truth of the matter is that turkey contains a substance called tryptophan, and everybody has been told many times that tryptophan makes you sleepy. And that is to some extent true. Tryptophan will help to make you sleepy. What is not true, however, is that turkey contains a lot of tryptophan. In fact, it contains no more tryptophan than ground beef or chicken, and less tryptophan than, say, pork or Swiss cheese. So while eating a lot of turkey could theoretically make you sleepy, it's no more likely to do so than pretty much any other food. The reason that we get so sleepy on holidays like Thanksgiving when we eat a big turkey meal is because we're eating a very large meal in general, which can make you sleepy, and also because we're more likely to consume a fair amount of alcohol, which also can make you sleepy.
All right, and here's our last one. Electromagnetic fields created by cell phones interfere with machinery in hospitals.
And this one has been, I think, a little bit misunderstood. I think what we were trying to say is that cell phones are truly dangerous in hospitals. There have been some pretty good studies that have shown, especially in the past, that cell phones can interfere with equipment. However, they never have really interfered in equipment in a way that's affected anyone clinically. Nobody's ever really been documented from having died or having a serious injury due to cell phone use. And even the studies that show that there can be some interference have really recommended that we keep cell phones about a yard or a meter away from big devices. So the truth of the matter is, yes, if you're in an ICU or in an operating room and you're a few feet away from a ventilator or a machine that's really keeping someone alive, you probably don't want to use your cell phone. But in the vast majority of places in the hospital where you're not close to any equipment, when you're in cafeterias or on labor floors after giving birth, when you're in hallways or anywhere where somebody's really not on a ventilator, cell phones really pose no danger. And some recent studies have shown that giving doctors cell phones in certain clinical situations may actually help them to reduce medical errors and save lives. So by just banning cell phones indiscriminately from hospitals, not only does that really not make sense from a scientific standpoint, it might actually be harming patients in some ways.
Interesting. You know, and the conclusion of your study was that a lot of doctors do believe these myths and that we as physicians have to be very careful about looking at the evidence to support the things that we're telling our patients.
Yes, part of what we do as health services researchers is train other doctors, medical students, and residents or physicians in training in how to interpret the medical literature and understand research about very complex things like drugs or new procedures. And what we wanted to say in this study is it's not just important to understand the really hard technical things. Sometimes we have to apply these same techniques to the things that are more common, that we believe every day, and look at the evidence and see what is really known and what are we guessing about and what has really actually been proven to be false that we're still saying is true.
Right. Well, thank you so much. This has been interesting. I appreciate you joining us.
Thank you for having me.